So I've had this burning question in the back of my head as I watch these cheap hobby grade CNC routers come down and down and down in price. And that question is, can one of these cheap hobby grade CNC routers be used for custom guitar building or custom guitar kit building? Is it something that you can use to build a small business? How much money do you have to spend in order to get something that will do that? Let's find out. I'm Dan, this is Guns and Guitars. Let's get started. Now, if you follow my channel, you know that a couple months ago, late June, early July, I finished up my first round of custom base build orders. And that was a really great learning experience as I figure out how to grow and scale this hobby into a small business. And so I went ahead and took pre-orders on a second round of custom builds, as well as some do-it-yourself neck and body only kits. And I've been dealing with some issues with supply chain and manufacturers that have been extremely frustrating, just trying to get the parts that I need to complete these builds. And so as a result, I really haven't made much progress on that second round yet. But it has afforded me an awesome opportunity to get my hands on one of these small hobby grade CNC routers and learn the language, learn its limitations, and figure out if it's something that can be used for a business like this. Now, this isn't going to be a full review video on the CNC router that I chose. That's going to be coming a little bit later, so I'm not going to dive into the specifics. This is really just a test to see if I can make this machine do what I want it to do. Now, the machine that I chose for this test is the Fox Alien Masuter Pro. Now, I chose this machine for a lot of reasons, most of which I will get into in the full review. But basically, for this video, all you need to know is that it's cheap and it's scalable. And by scalable, I mean expandable. So you can get in at the base model which is what I have, at about $629, I believe. And then it'll require just a few little upgrades to get it working for this specific type of project. But the cool thing is that Fox Alien is going to be releasing an extension kit for the Masuter Pro here soon, which I don't know how much bigger it will need to be, but to do a full-size base body like this, it only needs to expand on the X-axis another like 3 or 4 inches. I mean, it is just barely shy of doing a complete body like this. Now, this is a pretty long offset body as far as guitar bodies go, so there may be guitar bodies that will fit inside the workable area of the Masuter Pro. But that wasn't really what I was interested in, at least in this first stage. What I really wanted to know, at least starting out, was could I use the machine just to do some of the work that I don't like doing, like routing out the neck and pickup cavities and the rear electronics cavities. Now, it's been a very frustrating few weeks as I learned the language and the software and the limitations of the machine, and I just practiced over and over again on particle board just to see if I can get this thing to cut the way I want it to. And after, let's just say, more than a few mishaps and ruined projects, I finally started to get consistent results. Now, the mishaps that I was dealing with, I could easily chalk up to user error. I don't think there's really anything wrong with the machine or the software that I was using, just something wrong with the person using it. So after lots of help from the Fox Alien users Facebook group, I was finally able to get some decent results on particle board. And I figured even if I could use the machine just to make router templates for using with a handheld router, that in and of itself is actually a really big win. Just being able to, for example, drag and drop different pickup layouts into my design, create a router template real quick, and then even if I just routed it out by hand, I feel like that would be well worth the investment. The good news is after I made about 10 successful carves in particle board, I finally tried out these carves on my hardwoods and I got really good results. Well, that turned out pretty freaking killer. It did take a long time, took 3 hours and 40 minutes. So I guess with these budget-friendly CNC machines, patience is the name of the game. But you know what I did during that 3 hours and 40 minutes? I didn't have to route out any neck pockets, that's for sure. Now, this machine does not take you all the way to a finished product like this. Really, these bodies are very labor intensive, okay? There's a lot on here that cannot be done on a CNC machine, especially a CNC machine the size of a Masuter Pro. But this body had a lot of routing that needed to get done, and routing is my least favorite job of guitar building. And so I was able to route out all the neck and pickup cavities as well as the electronics cavity in my sleep. Literally, I could set up my machine to run, go to bed, and the next morning I come out and all the difficult routing that I don't like doing is done. And that gets me a good chunk of the way there. So while I could have spent the last 2 or 3 weeks just building these by hand, and I probably could have made a lot more progress, once I finally learned how to use the machine properly and how to design the bodies properly, I was able to finish these 4 bodies in just 2 days. Now, this one is not completely done. That's because this is not a custom order. This one is going to be for me, but I didn't want to be testing and working out the kinks of my CNC machine on somebody else's prepaid body. So I decided if there were going to be any mistakes made, it needed to be made on my base, not on somebody else's. And so like I said, this video is not really a full in-depth review video of the Masuter Pro. That is going to be coming later. This is really, I guess, just a teaser vid to just figure out, I think a lot of you guys have the same question I do is, can one of these machines be used for this hobby or a small business? Now, one thing that I did learn in this process is that the success of using one of these hobby grade CNC machines is not just learning how to use it, but also when to use it in your workflow. For example, this first body, because it was my first test on actual hardwood, I wanted to babysit it and make sure that it didn't screw up, ready to hit the emergency stop if I needed to. And it took a total of about 5.5 hours to do the neck and pickup cavities and the rear electronics cavity. And so of course, if I was going to do this, by hand, I could knock it out a lot faster than that. But once I had the confidence that the machine could do it without messing up, these other 2 bodies, I just set the machine up in the evening when I was done with work for the day, and I let it run, and I just checked on it every hour or so. But the majority of the time I got to spend with my family or, cooking dinner, doing stuff like that. And these neck and electronics cavities routed out themselves while I was not working, which was awesome. And so for this last body, I just set it up to route out while I was putting the finishing touches up on these bodies, because obviously my body design is very labor intensive. I mean, I still got to do the final shaping of the body on the bandsaw. I got to round over the edges, add the comfort contours, drill all the holes for the wires to feed through. I need to hand fit the necks so that they have a nice tight neck pocket. And while I was doing that on these 2, I was able to get a really good head start on this one. All right, and while I was putting the finishing touches on these 2 kits, the CNC got me a really good start on this one. As you can see, most of the hard work is done. Well, that's a bit generous. Some of the hard work is done. As you can see, I did cut out the shape already on the bandsaw prior, and then I just had the CNC route the neck, pickup cavities, and electronics cavities, which is fantastic because that's my least favorite part of this job. And of course the laser made a nice cavity cover there, perfect fit. Now obviously these kits are really labor intensive and require a lot of work outside of what a CNC can do. But it is really nice, it's kind of like having a second set of hands in the shop. And I knew that this little CNC machine was not going to be able to do full-size bodies, but it is pretty cool, and I'm looking forward to doing a full review video on it coming up here. So can you use a hobby-grade CNC machine like the Fox Alien Masuter Pro for a hobby or small business in guitar building? The majority of my thoughts I am going to leave for my full in-depth review video, which will be coming out shortly. So if you haven't yet, click the subscribe and bell notification so that you know when that's coming out. But I will say this. I was absolutely thrilled that I was able to knock out these 3 guitar kits so quickly to kind of get back on track with my next round of pre-orders. And it does give me confidence moving forward with my other full custom builds that I will be able to kind of speed up the process a little bit. So don't forget to stick around for that full review video. It's going to be coming out in the next week or so because I'm really excited to discuss with you more about scaling my business and my plans for that CNC in the future, how I'm going to use it, as well as tips and tricks for using a machine like that for guitar building. I'm Dan, this is Guns & Guitars. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in that full review.